Welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the Indiana section of the AES. My name is Jay Dill. I have been the chairperson for the section since, for the last 2 years. And starting in January of 2023, we'll have a new set of leadership. Brett will be the chairperson, and then we have another group of people that are filling in for the secretary and the treasurer and so forth, and the executive committee. So there's going to be lots of great things happening in 23 and 24, I'm sure, certain. Very good. So anyway, so I just want to say thanks to everybody who, has supported the AES Indiana section for the last couple of years since I've been chair. Tonight, we have the great fortune to have Scott Robbins from LEA Professional that's going to come in and discuss LEA from the start through the middle and to where he is today. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jay. I really appreciate getting the invite to come here. We were able to come down roughly four and a half years ago, I think, is when we last came here and last had a chance to talk. And we didn't have a working amplifier. We just had pictures and promises at that point in time. Yeah, we had modules we were passing around, and so.
This doesn't work. We stole it from the engineering bench.
But when Jay asked me to come down, I thought this is pretty much the funnest thing I get to do is talk about our company. Out of all the things I have to manage throughout the day, this is what I like doing. We're obviously very passionate about it. And I'm really happy that you guys came over, and I think there's probably some people online maybe streaming and watching us, so really grateful for the opportunity. My title says sales, but I'm not going to try to make this a big sales pitch. The point here was to talk about how we started the company, the challenges, but I would like to entertain you a little bit, or maybe not going to be that entertaining. Actually, if I find I'm getting boring, I have my secret weapon. This is my shark squirt gun I stole from my grandson, so if I see anybody sleeping, I didn't put anything in it, but I would, because we're proud of our product, I will show you a quick demo here at some point. But as I thought about what to talk to you guys about, just a little bit of background. So our company was founded by former Crown executives and engineers. So I myself spent 30 plus years, almost 35 years with Crown, including the time we were owned by Harman. And so it was a good time, but unfortunately the company was closed in Elkhart. And it was based in Elkhart, Indiana, just north of here, in 2018. So it was kind of an adverse time, for a lot of people. The company had been based in that area for 75 plus years. But sometimes when you're faced with some adversity, something great can emerge out of that. And I think we all probably have some personal stories. I certainly have my own where you go through an adverse time, and but then you come to the end of it and you think, hey, that was actually good for me. It was something that turned into a very positive thing. And so LEA was kind of born out of that idea when the company was closed. And it starts with LEA. So it is the three letters. People call us LEA. We've heard LEA. Doesn't matter. We don't care. We don't get offended by it. But it stands for Loud Enough Audio. And so that's how the name came to be. Our founder is Blake Augsburger. When he heard that the Crown factory was going to be closed, he was sitting on his boat in Florida fishing, semi-retired, and writing the business plan. And his boat was called Loud Enough. And so we thought that'd be a cool name to name the company. And so that's the backstory of how the name came to be. One thing that was very strategic, Blake's vision when he started the company was not just to be another amplifier company. We came from Crown. We have very dear friends. It was my career for a good part of my, adult life. And so, but we weren't trying to be Crown. We weren't trying to be any other amplifier company. We didn't think the world needed another amplifier company. So his vision was to create some technology and be a technology leader. And take an amplifier at its core, but surround it and package within it technology that hadn't been brought to bear. So it was really his vision that created that, and also the financial commitment. Those are two key ingredients to get a company like ours off the ground. And Blake is the sole owner of the company, privately held. There is no private equity behind us. There's no venture capital money, which has been great. As an employee of the company, we don't have anybody that has their purse strings attached to us telling us how we have to spend our money or invest our money. So Blake's putting the profits that we make 100% back into the company. So it's going into operational improvements, new product development, and people, so we can grow and scale. So it does take some financial commitment. Just a little bit of background on Blake. So he was the president of Crown right after the Harman acquisition in 2000. Seems like such a long time ago, but it went by in a blink for me. So Blake was the president. I've known him for almost 24 years now. He did a great job leading the company at that time. He was promoted. He ran Harman Pro for 10 years, and then he was retired in 2016, and then the rest I told you about. So our company is very experienced from a people standpoint. Most everybody came from Pro Audio. The one guy who didn't is, you can see him pictured. His name is Matt McLean, VP of Finance. Matt was an expert in startup, obviously an expert in finance, and he was also an expert, and still is, in ERP implementation. So one of the early strategies of our company was to try to automate our processes as much as possible. Because we thought we would scale rapidly. We wanted to be able to scale rapidly, but without adding a lot of overhead and cost. One of the things Jay mentioned in the title of my talk today was, how do you balance, the financial commitment and growth, and how do you scale, and the automation behind how we manage orders, how we do our ERP planning, how we do our production planning, how we take care of our customers. There's a lot of automation behind the scenes, and Matt was a key player coming into that. And speaking of the team, the team really was also key. You have to have a good team. And it takes a lot of people that are really passionate about building a company from scratch, a lot of people that are willing to take some risk and leave maybe cushy careers to go and start something. The engineers are a big part of that. We super proud of our engineers, and it was interesting from my perspective, because having worked at Crown, and I worked with all these individuals for many, many years, decades in some cases, and it was kind of fun to watch what happens when you take a group of really talented, driven, smart people and remove corporate encumbrances and just say, hey, here's the vision, now go invent and go create, and figure it out. And you watched, a lot of enthusiasm among the engineering teams and creativity as well. If you open up our product and you look at the circuit board, you'll see a shark bite taken out of one side of the board. And that was just one of our engineers exercising some creativity in the design processes, which is kind of cool. But we didn't do it all by ourselves. When you talk about team, there's internal people, but there's also external entities and organizations that you have to rely on to help. I'll draw your attention to this company, Zollner. Zollner is our manufacturing partner. They're a German aerospace and automotive electronics manufacturer, multi-billion-dollar company. They have plants all over the world. They happen to have a world-class facility in Costa Rica. And that, to us at the time, was a strategic advantage, because there was a lot of China trade war chaos going on, with duties. And being in Costa Rica, it's a trade-free, duty-free relationship with the United States. It's in our hemisphere, so from a logistics standpoint, we can get product into our warehouse in Elkhart, Indiana, very quickly. And it's a TAA compliant country. So when it comes to government projects and Buy America Act and all these things, we could manage that. So, and being an aerospace, automotive, electronics manufacturer too, they understand quality. They had the sophistication to build the kind of product that we designed. And so that's been a strategic partnership throughout. And as a matter of fact, here's a picture of what the plant looks like in Costa Rica. I personally have never been to our plant. Our engineers have spent a lot of time there, but it is a world-class facility. And so we've been super happy with this relationship. When I talk about partnerships and team and what it takes, now we have this vision, we have the financial commitment, with Blake's investment in the company. we have these strategic partnerships kind of in place, but now we need a sales channel. You've got to get your product to market, and that was my job to come in and try to figure out how do we take our product to market. And I sat down 5 years ago, my first day at the office, and I sat down and we didn't have any product. All we had was pictures and promises. So I was pretty nervous. I would have to admit, I was very scared about the task. You've got 20-something people sitting there depending on me trying to figure out how to develop a path to market and sell it. And so we went to work and we started building relationships with channel partners. It starts with reps. We in the audio industry, we use most manufacturers use reps, and there's a lot of really good rep firms out there. Jay came from McFadden Sales, our rep online marketing, tremendous organizations. And so we started building relationships with rep firms. And then we went overseas and I started building relationships with distribution companies. And the result now is we have a global network of distributors in place. At last count, there's 150 independent rep salespeople alone just in the United States that are out there dedicating some of their time to talk about LEA and take us to market and help educate our dealers. And so we would be nowhere without these relationships. So that's a key part of our story too, is just building these channel partner relationships. But then, I mentioned adversity right at the very beginning. Well, adversity crops up. You're going to have some adversity. And I don't know if any company has ever started without adversity that crops up from time to time. We've certainly had our fair share. We started shipping our product in about January of 2020. And you can all know what happened just a couple months later in 2020, the whole world kind of shut down. And so that was a challenge. And that's something that we had to roll up our sleeves and figure out how are we going to overcome this challenge. I will tell you that in a weird way, it almost kind of helped us because we were already on the ground. We were brand new. We had no revenue. We had 0 sales. So all we had was expenses at that point in time. So we were prepared to weather a storm without any revenue because that's the mode we were in at that point in time. And our competitors were not in that mode. They had revenue, they had structure, they had more overhead. So they had somewhere to fall and we didn't. I was at Infocom, I want to say it was 2 years ago. And I had a dealer come into our booth and say, you guys are like the bubblegum shrimp company. You went out and launched this company and started shipping product in the middle of this raging storm. And nobody in their right mind would do something like that. But when you came back, all your competition was gone. And so, it was a little bit like that. So that was adversity. There's wars, creates a lot of economic turmoil, uncertainty. You have to manage your way through that. And now one of the adversities that we face is competition. Now our competition has figured out what we're doing and we're starting to see some, we're flattered, but we're starting to see some, some copying of some of the technologies brought to market. We've been on this rocket ship as LEA, but now we've got people chasing us and, nipping at our heels. So that's adversity. It's something you got to deal with. It's how do you stay one step ahead of your competition and keep innovating and keep driving? And so that's all of that to say, at the end of the day, what we really tried to create was a truly differentiated product. We didn't want to be any other amplifier company. We didn't want a Me Too product. We wanted something that we could be proud of, that I could go out, and it's genuinely fun to sell. I love talking about it. And at the core, yes, it is a great amplifier. At the core, it's an amplifier. It does what amplifiers are supposed to do. It faithfully reproduces sound. It's reliable. It does it with impeccable signal integrity. Those are kind of all the DNA foundational elements of our product. Then what the vision was, and Blake's vision was, is to package in it and around it all this technology. I say it comes along for free. No, it doesn't really come along for free, but it's technology that, if you just want a great amplifier, you can plug it in and it'll just do what amplifier is supposed to do. And you don't have to use any of this, but the technology that you put around it being a cloud-enabled smart amplifier, a very simple web-based user interface to control it and configure it, intuitive, something you don't even need to be trained on. Now we've introduced new free software for 35 different manufacturers and thousands of different speaker tuning files now, 11 different APIs. All those things have been developed over time, and they do come along for free. It's just things that have been innovated into the product as we've gotten better and stronger. We've learned from the market.
Scott,
Yes.
were those features planned from the get-go? Or
So-
was it after a while that that's a good idea, let's put it in there?
That's a good question. So some of them were, yes, but some of them came as a result of experience and customer feedback. And that's actually a point I'm going to talk about is you have to start to listen to your market. And in order to improve, you have to, what kind of feedback are you getting from your customer? And then you start to innovate that into your design and change it. So that's a very good point. So not everything, and that's part of trying to stay ahead is you've got to adapt and change. But the result has been tremendous. It has been a rocket ship. We're in a lot of really cool venues now, thousands of venues. We're in multiple theme parks around the world, universities. There's very high-end residences, yachts. We're in a lot of health clubs, fitness centers. The F45 chain, every one of those has a Connect Series 354 in it. Planet Fitness has a lot of our products. Peloton, their brick and mortar stores have LEA. I don't know if somebody's trying to give us a hint, like we need to get in better shape over at LEA, but we end up in a lot of gyms. And then, as we've expanded, we've just finished our third cruise ship, MSC Cruises, an Italian cruise ship manufacturer. We're hard spec now in a Norwegian Cruise Line project. We've got a lot of private yachts. The picture you see in the upper left-hand corner, it's kind of small, called Jag. That's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a $400 million yacht. It's got 68 LEA amplifiers in it. It's crazy.
How many amplifiers?
68, and they're 68 8-channel amplifiers. So that's a lot
I
of
heard
channels.
68 million, I thought, what?
No.
It tells a generator.
Yeah. So cruise ships, cinemas, hospitality. The other thing about trying to make sure you're successful as a company is be really focused on where your market is going to be, and not try to be everything to everybody. And we focused on the installation market. We don't make a retail product. We don't make a touring oriented product, at least not at this stage. Our focus out of the gate was installation. And so, anywhere you have a fixed installation, be it a small restaurant retail application all the way up now to a large sporting facility or cruise ship, that's where we're trying to be. Okay, so that's a little bit of background. Now I'm going to pause and I need to talk about the product just for a minute. So we designed it to be operated, configured, and controlled with a web-based user interface. So there's no knobs on the front panel. You don't go to the amplifier physically and make adjustments to it. You have to connect to it. So hence we called it a Connect series for a reason. And we developed 3 ways to connect to the amp. So the most common way we see is hardwire connection via an RJ45 connector like we are here in the building. So I'm plugged into the network here at New Era. I'm on the same network with my laptop. When you're on the same network as the amp, you can gain access to it to configure and control it. The amplifiers are Wi-Fi enabled. So as a matter of fact, I was prepared to go Wi-Fi. Sometimes you get it's hard to connect to a secure network like this and get an outside internet connection. So I was prepared to go Wi-Fi. And you enter an SSID name and a password, and then the amp will seek out that network and connect to it wirelessly. If you don't have a network, no problem. All of the products have a built-in Wi-Fi access point. So there's a button on the back that you can toggle that on and off, and then you can log into that. The access point name is displayed on the front panel, and you can log into that like you would any other hotspot. And then there again, once you're logged in, you enter the IP address, which is always displayed on the 4th line of text on the front panel. Enter the IP address in your browser, and you're in. We do now talk about learnings. We discovered fairly early on that Wi-Fi in a lot of installations is not allowed. You cannot bring a Wi-Fi device into a lot of government installations, institutes of higher education, financial institutions. And so now we make what we call a -G for government version, which is just completely removes the Wi-Fi functionality. It just becomes a network-only amp at that point. But that was exactly to your point, and one of those things we had to learn. So what I'll do now is I'm gonna just pause the PowerPoint for a second and just move over to my browser. So now what you see on the screen, and I hope everybody online can see it, you have two browser windows open. I have the New Era website on the left and the LEA website on the right. And as I mentioned, I'm on the same network that the amp is on. So then it's just simply a matter of typing in the IP address. I wrote this down earlier. I'm 192.168.1.140. So this is what the amplifier looks like in software. I know it's kind of small there.
Who would ever guess?
That's the amplifier sitting on the table here. It is a Connect Series 352. It's a 350 watt by 2-channel amp. I just have my iPhone plugged into the input so you can see the metering. There's obviously no speaker hooked up to it, but that's the extent of the demo. And again, this is what the amplifier looks like. You can name an amp anything you want, and I named this one Jaws. We're very fond of sharks at LEA, so the shark theme permeates kind of everything we do in our marketing efforts and everything else. And we have a discovery system too. So if there was more than one amp on the network, once you log into one, they all find each other. So if you have 100 amps in an installation, they would all populate here. So when you click on the channel count, when you click on the main box there, it opens up the channel count. This is a 2-channel amp. If you had an 8-channel amp, you could display all 8 channels if you want, or zoom in or zoom out. I'm not going to take time now to go through all of the interface to show you how it works, but I can tell you that we designed it, again, strategically. We wanted to make it easy to use and easy to understand. So as you step through the various windows, you've got an input router here that has a couple of different override modes for paging ducking. You can change your gain. It's all very responsive. As you move around inside the user interface, the amps are designed to drive any load out of the box. So in this next screen, you can select low Z directly coupled speaker or 70-volt distributed line. Every channel is independent of the other channel, so we kind of try to make it like a chameleon. We also did something a little different with bridging. So you guys, I know, are very experienced in this room, come to audio. You understand bridge mono, where you take a 2-channel amp, you physically or mechanically combine those channels, make it a 1-channel amplifier, but now the benefit is you get double power out. Well, with Smart Power Bridge, all you do is you just click a button in the user interface, and now I get double power out of that channel, but I don't sacrifice the other channel. And we get challenged on that a lot, saying, hey, you can't, how do you do that? And it's really just a matter of headroom. We built every single output stage in all of our models are capable of producing twice their rated power, and we put an oversized power supply. So it's just a matter of when I click that button, I'm changing the limiter settings to allow more voltage and current to be generated and thereby create more power. And that's it. And it's been a very popular feature with integrators because it's a problem solver. It allows you, if your use case changes and you need more power to drive a subwoofer, or you got a big 70-volt distributed load and you need more power in that particular channel, you can engage Smart Power Bridge and not have to buy another amplifier.
And it doesn't affect the other channel?
So on on the 700 watt models and above, you will get about 85% power on the other channels because you do start to get headroom limited in the power supply. So that's a good question.
I'm glad to hear that, because otherwise it would be voodoo and I'd be really concerned.
Yeah, you do. And the lower power models, no. And then the big amp, the 1500 watt by 4 channel, you get 2 Smart Power Bridge channels on that one. So that one can become it's a 1500 watt by 4 channel amp, or it can be 3000 by 2, or it can be 3000 by 1 and 1500 by 2. And there is around 300 watts available on the remaining channels. That's about all you have left after that. So I'm just gonna go right to the DSP section because I wanna show you this. They're all 96 kilohertz processing, low latency, really high quality filters. There is a speaker tuning library. So you can go out and import a file, choose a file and install it into the channel. I can't see it on my screen. I can't see it right now because I got a little header there, but it's really easy to download a speaker tuning file. Again, part of the strategic advantage of our product was to try to make it simple. And so you can download that. There's 8 bands of parametric EQ per channel. There is the RMS and peak limiters. And again, all those values would be set once you download that DSP profile for that particular manufacturer speaker.
And that's from your website, or is there a separate thumb drive that comes with it?
There's all free downloads on our website. So you go there, whatever manufacturer you're using. I think there's 32 different manufacturers, and we'll add them at request. So if if a customer says, hey, I really want this, then as long as the manufacturer is willing to share their profiles with us, we'll create them. And we do have some manufacturers that prefer to create them themselves. So we send them an ANT, and then they'll create their profiles themselves and then send us the file and we put it on the website. At the very end of the signal chain, I want to point this out because it's kind of fun. So we do have a load monitor, and there is a more sophisticated pilot tone detector. So what this does is it sends a high frequency inaudible tone down the speaker line, and we're looking for a very specific impedance at that frequency. And if the impedance varies outside of that band, then it'll register a load event or a load error. And that's oftentimes required in a life safety application where you have to validate the integrity of your speaker system. So it's 24/7 active load monitoring. So that's why we have it there. But we have a more rudimentary load monitor. That's using the program content. It's coming into the amplifier. And we know the output voltage and the output current of the amp at all times. And so if you know voltage and current, you can do an Ohm's law calculation and calculate impedance. And then we just wrote an algorithm that measures that over a period of time, and then we can average it. So now we can tell you nominal impedance that the amplifier sees at the output stage. So if I turn this on, so the amp's going to try to start to measure the load, and you can see, now I'm in between songs, that's perfect timing. So you can see a measured impedance here, and it'll slowly rise over time as a program content. And now you can see it's saying above limit. So the idea being that once the amplifier determines a nominal impedance, let's say it's 8 ohms, you can set a window above and below that. And so if the load ever drifts outside of that, it'll register a load error.
User set parameters?
User set, yes.
Some they say 3 dB, and that's not very good because that's half your load.
Yeah. No,
So
it's all, it's gonna be very hard to see on the screen. I apologize, it's so small, but you can set a high limit in ohms and a low limit in ohms. And so now it's saying I'm above the limit here. Now, if you look over at the emoji guy, you can see he's a frowny face now. So we built a smart amp, and when you build an amplifier, we had to figure out a way to give it a voice so it can communicate back to you. And so we chose emojis because they're kind of fun. We wanted to have some fun, but they translate in any language. Everybody knows what a happy face is. Everybody knows what a frowny face is. If you see a frowny face as you do here, that's the amplifier's way of telling you, I'm fine, but there's something going on around me that's not right. In this case, I got a load issue. I don't have a load. Now it's registering an open load. If it was a short, it would say short. An event, these are examples of events. It could be AC line voltage problem, excessive clipping or limiting. There's nothing wrong with the amp, but it's things that we track. And when you click on that emoji, when it's in that state, there'll be a time and a date stamp and a register. So the idea was it's a diagnostic tool for an integrator. If you have a problem on a job site, you've got this information that's at your disposal. The other emoji face that you might see here, besides a frowny face is a shouting face or an angry face. That's the amp way of saying, I have a problem. That's a fault condition. There's about 50 different fault conditions that we monitor inside the amp. So there again, if we have a failure in the field, something wrong, we can ask the customer to show us that fault log. And we can then maybe diagnose what went wrong, perhaps troubleshoot it remotely, maybe save an exchange of an amp, something like that. So I'll go back and I'll turn off this load monitor now, and you can see immediately my emoji guy now is back to a happy face. All good. Okay, the last thing I want to show you, and then I promise I'll step off my sales box for a minute. This is fun to talk about, though. I have to admit, I get all excited about it. Is the cloud. So every amp we've ever shipped, tens of thousands now at this point, we shipped that they were cloud enabled. They're IoT devices. And it's free. So you have to create a cloud account. That's anybody in this room or watching me can do it. You go to leaprofessional.cloud and you create an email address and a password, and now your cloud account's live. So I've already done that. So I'm going to go to this other browser and go to my cloud account, leaprofessional.cloud. Now you can see the look and feel of the software is the same, but instead of amplifiers in this left pane, I have venues. So you can see I've got Shark Bite Bar and Grill, Hammerhead Community School Corporation, Great White Nightclub, First Church of the Finn, my personal favorite, Bite Bakery. Maybe you sense there's a theme there as well. But the idea is if I'm New Era here in Indianapolis and I go out and I do an installation or create a new venue, I can quickly and easily add that venue to my cloud account. And then it becomes very easy to onboard an amp into that venue. So I've done that here. This is actually my personal home theater, but here's Hammerhead Community School Corporation. So this amp, there's JAWS. I've added this to the venue earlier just so I can save some time. There's JAWS sitting on the desk here. We're physically in the venue, but now from my cloud account, I can see JAWS here at this venue, Hammerhead Community School Corporation. And it's all very secure. We're using Amazon Web Services IoT Core as our cloud server provider, all 256-bit encryption. Amazon has more than 100 server locations around the world. So no matter where you are, you have quick and easy access to your cloud account. And so as long as you have an internet connection, you can get in and see what's going on. So now this is where it gets cool. If I click on that amp, literally everything I just showed you that you have access to remotely or locally, you have access to remotely. So if I want to lower the volume while I'm sitting at home on my couch, I can turn it down, and almost immediately now the volume is changed at the venue. So when you say cloud, it means different things to different people. I'm with a lot of IT experts here, I found out earlier. I am not an IT expert. I'm an audio guy. IT is my weak spot. Cloud means something different to me than what it's going to mean to my IT expert friends here. For my kids, it's a server in the sky where all their iPhone photos are stored. But we just took it to a whole new level, we think, in terms of how we integrated this to where it's full two-way communication back and forth. If Hammerhead Community School Corporation doesn't pay the bill and the financial people at New Era are upset, you can mute them from the cloud, and now there's no audio playing at Hammerhead Community School Corporation. Likewise, if I'm local and I unmute, it almost immediately pushes back up to the cloud. So just full two-way communication back and forth. If Hammerhead Community School Corporation says, hey, I've lost audio in one of the concourses in my bathroom, or in the bathrooms, I can go into that event register, and the load error that I created before is now there, visible to me remotely. So I can see here at this date and time tonight, I have an open load. And so all of that's there. The only thing you can't do from the cloud is you can't change your network settings. So those are all in a read-only mode, because obviously, for obvious reasons, you risk knocking yourself off. So, okay. That's enough of that. Any questions about that? That's a fun part of my deal. I had to get through that. So, okay. I will go back to the PowerPoint now. I just have a few more slides to share with you, and then, we can open it up for questions or anything you guys would like to know. I'll do my best to answer. So to exactly the question you pointed out, that's my next slide here, and that is, was the strategy all thought about at the very beginning, or did it evolve? And no, it was not all thought about from the beginning. And that's a main point of when you're starting a new company, is you have to listen, you have to adapt, and you have to figure out how to stay ahead, because that adversity called competition is chasing you all the time, and they're trying to unseat you. They see you have this cool thing and they don't like it, and they want to have a piece of your action. So you have to keep evolving the product. And for us, this came in the form of something we call Sharkware. Sharkware was basically a culmination of 4 years of customer feedback. Say, hey, I wish I had this, or wouldn't it be nice if we had that, or this is kind of a problem for me. You got to solve that. And some of the examples that we put into it would be offline design mode. So up until Sharkware, you had to be connected to the amp in order to configure it. And now with Sharkware, you can configure, do a whole design and configure a product and save it as a JSON file. And then when you get connected to the amp, you can then download that file into the amp. So that was one thing that we learned. Grouping was another feature. As our installations got bigger and more amplifiers were in the single installation, you needed to have a way to be able to group whole amplifiers together, or specific channels together, so you can control them all as part of a zone or a group of amps. So this has grouping features. User access control, another highly requested feature. Up until this software version, the web user interface was either you have access to everything or you have access to nothing. And now with user access control, as an administrator, I could create any number of users, assign them. Maybe I just want you to have access to a volume control, or maybe I just want you to have access to source select or something like that. There's hundreds and hundreds of sub users that you can create and give them any access that you desire, and then they can't change what you don't want them to change. Graphical EQ, that was a big one too. Let's face it, we're all used to seeing how we're manipulating the signal in a graphical format versus a numeric format. I know you guys in this room, you know what Q is of a filter, and gain or cut or boost or shelf on a crossover. And you can enter those values numerically, but it's really helpful to see them graphically. So now you can see here on the screen, we have a graphical representation of how you're manipulating the signal. Box speaker tunings. We talked about speaker tuning files, and we do have some manufacturers that won't share their tunings because they're either A, proprietary, or B, they don't want anybody messing with their secret sauce. This is the way this speaker is supposed to sound, and I don't want anybody changing it. So now you have the ability to create a file, lock it, make it invisible, but still download it into a channel of an amp and put that file in there. So those are just some examples of things that we had to learn and adapt and improve just to stay ahead of the competition. Other examples, APIs. So we have now 11 different APIs, and we're continually developing these. I think we have at least 3 that are under development right now. So depending on the application and what the integrator is comfortable using, you can download an API free and now be able to control the amplifier from external devices and sources. We also made a decision to make our code open source. So you can go to our website and download our TCP ASCII strings and our WebSocket commands. So you can write a bit of code, and I know there's code savvy people in here, I'm not so much, but you can write a little bit of code and have a push button or a touch screen or whatever, make the amplifier do something or behave a certain way or mute a channel or something like that. So that's all available for free. I mentioned speaker tunings. This is not all of them because we add them pretty rapidly, so I have to update my slide quite often, but we do have more than 30 now. This is some of the brands. We like to be, we're speaker agnostic, so we like to play nice with everybody. And So we're trying to prove that here. So no matter what the preference is of the integrator, they have this. So at the end, that's really the we set out at the beginning to create a differentiated product, and we're still continuing with that theme. As a new brand, you have to find something that's different, that you can really sell and talk about the advantages that you have over anybody else. And we would not have been able to do that if we just tried to be Crown, or we tried to be another amplifier company. So this is why I like to point that out. The next thing I'll talk about is price. Jay said, how do you create something like this and still manage the price, negotiation? How do you stay competitive? And so I have a slide that does two things. One is, this slide is meant to show that we win. I mean, you would expect me to say that, right? We win, we're better. But when I talk about this, so this is where I talk about price. When I sell LEA, I don't come to you and say, you should buy me because I'm the cheapest. That's not the way you sell a high quality product. That's not the way New Era sells their services. It's not the way our reps sell their product line. You don't say, hey, buy me because I'm the cheapest. But the way we thought about this is the integrator, by the way, is our customer, not the end user. We rely on integrators. That's our partner. And so the idea was, we need to build a product that's competitive in a bid, but yet still provides the margin that an integrator needs to be able to survive and support that end user. So we put a lot of thought into our pricing strategy, what the retail price point would be, what the discount from that should be for the dealer. And at the end, we have a product that you are not going to be disadvantaged on price. Now, I'm not saying we're the cheapest, but you're not going to be at a disadvantage if you use LEA product. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to be at an advantage because of all the things that we kind of bolt on for free. If you're really utilizing some of those features that we've added in, you're going to be at a price advantage, not a disadvantage. So that's how we thought about the price equation, when we looked at pricing the product. And now finally, the last thing, which I think is extremely important, is something we call the LEA way. And the LEA way is the way we do business. I spent 30 plus years with Crown, made a lot of mistakes. I was with Harman, I made a lot of mistakes. I saw a lot of mistakes be made as a company. So when you get a chance, this is the first time I've ever been a part of it, to start a company from scratch, you try to think about, well, what are all the things that I did wrong? And let's try not to do those. And what are the things that we did right? And let's try to do those. And we just talk about that as something called the LEA way. It starts with how we support our customer. It's a warranty that I think is the best in the business. We do an advanced replacement for 3 years. So, your ability to get your client up and running quickly is paramount to your reputation as an integrator. And so we try to create a warranty that allows, if there is a problem, you can get service. You don't have to wait for service. We just send you a new unit, and we pay the freight. We get it back. We get the old one back, and that's it. You don't have to wait for service. So that was our way of saying, hey, we're a new brand, but we're going to stand behind you. The other thing that we talk about too is just how we do business, how we treat our customers. We answer the phone. You're not going to get stuck in a phone tree. The culture in our building, we have 14,000 square feet now, so there's a lot of space we're running around in. But if somebody's walking by a desk doesn't have a person sitting at it and the phone rings, we'll pick it up. Doesn't matter. It could be an engineer's phone, it could be customer service, it could be tech support. So if I'm walking by tech support, I'll pick up the phone and say, LEA, and it'll be somebody with a technical question maybe I can't answer, but at least they got a voice, and I can say, hey, let me take down your number. I'll get somebody to call you back. So just little things like that, we talk about. We don't sell on Amazon. That's not where we live. We don't want to do that, but we do like, you guys have bought stuff on Amazon. You know how easy it is. That transactional experience is super easy. So we thought about that as well. An integrator shouldn't have to spend time and money and resources just to transact business with us. It should be really easy. So we tried to think about that. You get automated order confirmations, automated shipping confirmations. You can see in our portal what we have in stock. Those are some of the things that we thought about. Okay. I talked a lot. I talked for 45 minutes. But now I'm going to stop for a minute and let you guys ask some questions. I don't know if there's somebody's monitoring a chat box online, so if there's any questions online, I'd be happy to try to answer and do the best I can. Anybody have any questions?
Scott, I'll ask you a question. Can you speak to some of the core technology that LEA brings to the market that might be power supply, outputs, efficiency, heat management, things of that nature that are interesting or unique to your product?
Yep. So we use a Class D design that's not unique to LEA. It's a common design, but it's very efficient. We use a power supply that utilizes power factor correction. That's also not unique to LEA, but power factor correction is what gives the amp its efficiency. It allows you to maximize the AC energy coming from the wall and effectively convert that to usable power at the output. That's what, the amps are in the 90% efficiency range because of power factor correction. But one of the inherent problems with power factor correction is it induces harmonic switching distortion in the signal path. It is a high-speed switching power supply. And the DNA of our engineering team is, well, we don't want to color the sound. We don't like harmonic distortion. So we use an interleaved power factor corrected power supply. And if you want to, you can go and Google, there's a lot of white papers written, it's IPFC or interleaved power factor correction. I don't pretend to know the intricacies of the circuit, but I talked to our engineers and I said, how do I say this in a simple way? And basically it's two PFC circuits that are out of phase with each other. So you get maximum efficiency, but the harmonic distortion that's generated is canceled. So and now not everybody uses IPFC. It's a little bit more expensive, a little more difficult to design in. So we use IPFC design. The amplifier has a Linux operating system on board. Everything is controlled it's a high-speed switching device. There's a clock that keeps everything in sync. And so when you power the amplifier on, everything comes on in sequence and it's very fast. We're talking milliseconds of time, but the low voltage power supply powers up, the high voltage power supply, the operating system, the network card, and there's a muter circuit. And after all that's on, it unmutes itself. So there's no pops or anything on the output, no nothing. So all that happens in seconds of time. But there was just a lot of thought like that went into it. Of course, the things I mentioned, cloud enabled, user interface, those are all things that we try to do to differentiate ourselves, but still at the same time, create a core design that's reliable and it sounds good.
Perfect, thank you.
So if I can ask a question on behalf of some of my students
Okay.
who are interested in getting into the business, what are your suggestions for somebody who has an idea, who doesn't, you had such a wealth of knowledge in your team from the start. What about somebody who's starting out, who's going through this product design and development and rollout, who maybe doesn't have the amazing team that you guys put together?
Okay, good question. And I'll tell you from direct experience, we hire engineers right out of school. And they don't have all this experience, but they start off as interns. I would encourage any engineering student to get internships, in different fields. Try out. We hire interns, and we're constantly looking for engineering talent. Constantly, it's a continual quest. Most of our engineers are Purdue guys. That's just the DNA where most of them came from, and girls. But internship is a good place to start to build your knowledge. But if a company like ours, we have no problem bringing on someone with no experience, and we have several young engineers in our team that are just getting trained and brought up in the organization, and they're getting exposure to mechanical engineering, embedded firmware, electrical engineering, high power electronics for power supply design, test. This is one thing I learned. I didn't realize how sophisticated just a test engineer position is. We have a person on our team, Brenda Dunab. She writes the computer programs that run our product through the what we call in-circuit test during manufacturing and final MFT or manufacturing test, which is the final test that goes through before it gets put in the box. And the test jig alone is $50,000 to $100,000 investment that these things go through that we build and that she designs and builds. And then she creates the program for all this test. So she is a test engineer, and I just didn't know that was a thing. You know, I mean, all those years of Crown, I never really put it together. So, but to answer your question, all of those things to get exposure, you know, internships, and then just sign on with a company and get trained. You know, experience is not required. Cool. You just have to be smart. Any other questions?
Your self-monitoring, are the contact closures in the back, or do you have to do it through the firmware?
Another good question. So we have this amp doesn't have it on it, but we now have a GPIO connector. The higher power amps have or the lower channel count amps, I think it's an 8-pin connector, and the higher channel amps, I think it's a 14-pin connector. So you can do via external switch closures or VCAs, you can control volume, you can do automatic switchover for redundant backup. Hong Kong International Airport is a big project. They absolutely require redundant backup, so there's a GPIO connector that allows for that. Interestingly, that's a feature, the hardware was designed in, the connectors there, but we couldn't get all the components during the supply chain crisis, so we actually turned it off. So we can still deliver an amplifier with a GPIO connector and the firmware to run it. It's a special order, because not everybody needs it, and so we haven't put the cost into every single unit, but we can deliver that if you need it.
Will it go to a constant current amplifier on the dead short? Or will it shut down?
It will it'll protect itself and shut down, yes.
And then you get a
And you'll get a shouting face.
Well, I know some of the old Crowns,
Oh,
they didn't care.
oh, actually, you're right, it'll be a frowny face unless the amp does fail, then it'll get a shouting face, but it does not fail when you put a dead short on it, it protects itself.
Well, I know that I personally saw the Crown drive a crowbar,
Yes,
and you could hear it singing.
yes, I remember doing that
What
demo.
was it singing?
Whatever the input was, the music, I don't remember what it was, but it was humming right along.
You put a Metallica tune on the front end and you can hear it through the wrench. But, you know, that's with the switching, with the high-speed switching power supply, the constant current, you know, it'll just shut down.
No.
Yeah, it's not gonna try to
problem.
drive. It'll, once it sees a dead short, it's gonna stop trying to drive that load until it goes away, and then it'll turn itself back on.
I was thinking of hearing aids, closed loop. Because you can do a closed loop on some amplifiers or constant current, and then they put out the EMF and the telecoil picks it up.
This may be more for integrators, but with your speaker tuning files, is that starting to break down the concept where, you know, this speaker manufacturer has to have this amp manufacturer and so forth? I mean, that's been a fairly common thing with a number of companies.
Yes, so manufacturers that make both speakers and amplifiers, yes, they desperately want to sell that as a package.
Yeah.
So we do have some companies that won't share their files because, you know, they don't want to be exposed to having their speakers driven by another amp. So that is a competitive issue that we face. But we have found, even if, you know, you see JBL they make, you know, Harman owns an amplifier company and a speaker company, but we have JBL tuning files. And, you know, at the end of the day, you have to give the end user and the integrator what they want. And if they want a JBL speaker powered by an LEA amplifier, then you have to give your customer what they want. So, because I think some integrators and customers get upset when they're pigeonholed and forced down a certain path, The job of an integrator is to integrate, create the best possible solution for the customer regardless of the brand.
So, example, a powered JBL PA speaker, the profile that's in there, that's burned in, it knows its crossword point, its EQ, it knows its limit points, everything. Is that the profile that you're talking about that they share so that you can use exactly what those transducers are expecting?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's the crossover points, it's the whatever EQ, boost and cuts it is to make that speaker sound the best it could possibly sound. And
So it should
it's
sound
protection.
it should sound better because instead of a $10 amp, it's got a real amp.
Well, I don't know about that, but it should sound as good for sure.
The answer was yes.
I know.
What's the line that I've heard people that mix bands, they say, I can make you sound just a little bit better than you are. So hopefully we can make the speaker sound just a little bit better than it is.
Yeah.
You ship from Elkhart, right?
Yes, our warehouse is in Elkhart. It's the same warehouse that Crown used, as a matter of fact. We're in the same
Because I know
area.
whenever we got something, it was next day.
Yeah, we build in Costa Rica. We actually have 2 manufacturing plants now. We build the entire range from small to large in Costa Rica. And we now build our larger amps in China for our Asia market. Because it grew to the point where we couldn't keep up with the demand in just the one plant. So Asia business is taking off, so we have the facility there now for servicing that market.
So the Chinese amplifiers stay in China so they can fail over there.
That's I think that's the goal. We're not planning on shipping them all the way over here. So we have a warehouse in Singapore now. So it's coming online, so the amps will stay there. And bringing Chinese-made amps into the US is expensive. There's a high duty on it.
Yeah.
So it's not from a
And
margin
it's not the
standpoint.
Chinese that pay it.
Yeah, it's, you guys know.
My brother-in-law has a business over there, and they, even though he said, this is what you're gonna use, they'll decide, yeah, this is good enough, and they'll start loading the resistor, for example, that it's good enough, and then when he gets it over here and finds out, no, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
So that they'll make changes on you. That's kind of
Yeah,
surprising.
and China is not a TAA compliant country. So when we want to sell into TAA compliant applications, we have Costa Rica, which is extremely valuable. We're not pigeonholed.
Do you do the testing in Elkhart or
It's all
before that
tested,
ship?
it's all tested in Costa Rica.
Costa Rica?
Yeah, so that in-circuit test, which is basically the circuit board, there's, I think, 1,000 probes that come up and energize that circuit board and run it through a battery of tests, making sure the circuit board is good, and then it gets placed into the chassis and everything else gets hooked up, and then it gets a final manufacturing test, which is another computer program where loads get hooked up to it, everything gets checked. But all that happens in Costa Rica, but we have exactly the same system in our engineering office in South Bend. Because we do burn in, we do extra QC checks ourselves, anything we get back, it goes through all that, so we have to be able to recreate it. So we have the same test station in our headquarters. Which I encourage you guys are welcome to visit us, by the way. If you would have came to visit us 6-8 months ago, would have been kind of boring because it was just an engineering office. It's a lab and guys sitting there doing work and parts strewn all over the place. But now we have 14,000 square feet. We have an experience center. We can do a proper demo. It's very nice. And so it's a little more, the tours take more than 5 minutes now. So you're welcome to visit anytime.
Okay,
Phone ahead,
Come on, yeah.
just phone ahead.
Oh, yeah. If you surprise us, you may not have the best experience. We may have to let you wander by yourself, but you'd be welcome to.
pick up an amp here or there.
Yeah. You'll see them laying around.
Do you have a gift shop at the end where you can buy one?
I was thinking a tasting room, but.
Boy, in the days when we couldn't ship much because of supply chain issues, I'd carry this amp around and I swear I could have made a lot of money on it.
Well, I know you were shipping better than some of the others. And that's how you got into some of these venues, because the specified amplifier was not available. You had it, so we were able to get the consultant to agree to try it.
Yeah,
And that's when we threw it over to LEA and
that was a function of
opened the doors.
a lot, being in Costa Rica helped us in that regard a lot, because we were able to get the product. We were, remember the port congestion on the West Coast, that was a big deal for a long time. We weren't dealing with any of that. That was helpful. And we, working, being with this multi-billion-dollar aerospace and electronics manufacturer, they source the same parts that we need. They build Tesla electronics and SpaceX electronics in the same plant in Costa Rica. They just build circuit boards. They do our full box build there, but a lot of the parts are the same. So we were able to ride on the coattails of that.
How many people are employed in Costa Rica?
That's a good question. Dedicated specifically to LEA, I would say it's less than 50. And then LEA employees themselves, I think we're right around, directly employed, we're right around 30. So we're lean and mean. But we use a 3PL warehouse, so it's contract. Our sales department is me and 2 other people. So we use those 150 great rep firms that I talked about earlier, great, people from our rep firms. So we have a lot of what I would call contract labor that's supporting us, but direct employees is in the range of about 30. And most everybody's in South Bend. We have 3 remote employees at this point. Everybody else is in South Bend. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate the opportunity and you guys listening to me. It's been fun for me. So I hope I've shared a little bit of information that was useful.
Brett, were there any other questions via chat?
No, we're
Yeah?
good on.
We're all good with that?
It's been kind of fun to see, you came down when you had nothing.
Yeah.
And talked about it, and now you're shipping in
We
large
think,
venues now.
and this is all speculation because it's hard to tell, but we think we are when it comes to installation amplifiers, that we are number 2 in the world. Not in every market. We got a lot of work to do in some markets where we're nowhere, but we've grown rapidly. Now we don't make retail products, we don't make stuff like that. So when you add that all in, no. But if you just look at the installation market, we're the number 2 brand, maybe number 1.
Stay doing good where you.
What's that?
Continue to do the best work you can do
Yes.
with the amplifiers. We don't need headphones from you.
No. We're moving on to, we have a lot of, our roadmap is robust. We got a lot of cool products coming. We're thinking along that technology lines, how can we evolve the technology? We're not looking to make speakers,
What?
We're not looking to make speakers. Headphones.
Electrostatics.
Hey, I remember those.
Can you give us any insight into the roadmap?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we're looking at a half rack design. So it's going to be cool. It's close. Probably see it in the first quarter of next year. It'll have a lot of the features I talked about today, but in a really nice form factor. I think it'll be a game changer. We're looking at our markets are installation, but within that, house of worship, corporate, education, government, courtrooms, gyms, hospitality applications, restaurant, retail, hotels, and high-end residential. We do a lot of custom home integration, and we thought that we would have an opportunity to play in that market, and that's grown pretty well. So we have some product development along those lines as well to expand in that market.
30, 60 watt size?
30 watt, 60 watt, 120 watt. And then you look at, again, adapt, evolve, cinema. cinema industry, you know, there's some unique requirements for cinema applications that we're responding to. And so we'll have dedicated products for those specific markets, like we did for the government projects. I think the same for like cinema. And so there's
-C.
dash C, that's exactly what we're calling it. Why not? Keep it simple.
-G, -C.
Okay, thank you again,
All
Scott,
right,
thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.